Gray light filtered through the narrow windows of Ironwood State Prison, casting a reluctant glow on a morning that promised finality. The air inside the secure wing was dense with the silence of inevitability, broken only by the rhythmic clink of boots on concrete. Inside a narrow cell at the far end, Marcus Mark Delaney lay shackled to a steel-framed bed, his face drawn and hollow. A flickering bulb buzzed above, etching shadows into the lines of weariness carved deep into his features. Mark had barely slept, and the few hours he did were filled with dreams of loss and betrayal. Today was the day. In just a few hours, he'd be moved to the chamber next to the execution room. 2 hours after that, a lethal injection would silence his heartbeat. He hadn't had visitors, not really. Just Reverend Tolland, the chaplain, had come and gone in soft-footed regularity, offering words of comfort that couldn't reach through Mark's barricaded heart. But Mark had one final wish, clung to it like a raft in a storm. "I want to see Ace," he rasped to the guard who stood impassively outside the bars. Ace was his dog, a sable-coated German shepherd he'd raised from pup. 3 years before his arrest, the dog had been his anchor, his confidant, his lifeline. Warden Tessa Hallberg entered the corridor with her usual authority, tempered by an air of burden. "Delaney," she said, stopping just short of the bars. "Final requests require departmental approval. We don't know where the dog even is." Mark lifted his head. His voice, though cracked, held clarity. "He's with Laura Quinn. She was my fiancée before this. She kept him. Last I heard." The warden studied him, eyes unreadable. "I'll make some calls, but don't count on it." Mark nodded, the fire in his chest subdued to embers. He didn't beg, didn't plead. 5 years of protesting his innocence had dulled the desperation. From outside the cell, a pair of guards whispered. One said, "Half the state thinks he did it. The other half just wants the needle abolished." Mark ignored them. He focused instead on the pink-tinted horizon he could just barely glimpse through the high slit of a window. He remembered the morning walks he took with Ace through the back roads of Edgewater. The way the dog's ears perked up at squirrels, the leash taut with energy and joy. Ace had never judged him. Not even when the police dragged him away from the scene of a murder he swore he hadn't committed. A guard arrived at his door. "Delaney, time to move." Mark didn't ask again about his request. He simply stood and extended his wrists. The cuffs clicked on with mechanical efficiency. He walked without resistance, chains rattling at every step as they moved him toward the last stop before death. In a quiet neighborhood 30 miles away, Laura Quinn paced her modest kitchen. The sun had barely risen, but she'd been awake all night. Her hands trembled as she poured coffee into a mug she barely tasted. Curled nearby on a padded bed was Ace, older now, the fur around his muzzle more silver than black. When her phone rang, she jumped. The caller ID read, "Ironwood Facility." "Hello," she answered, voice tight. "MS. Quinn, this is Warden Hallberg. I'm calling regarding Mark Delaney's final request. He wishes to see Ace before the execution." Lara's breath hitched. He still remembers. He wants to see Ace. "We've secured conditional approval. If you can get here within 90 minutes, we can make it happen." She didn't hesitate. "We'll be there." Ace perked up at her tone, sensing something important. Lara dropped to her knees and hugged the dog. "Let's go see Mark, boy." She loaded him into the back of her truck and drove, her hands white-knuckling the steering wheel. As the dawn broke whiter, she whispered, "Just hold on, Mark. We're coming." Detective Owen Harden stood in front of his bathroom mirror, razor idol in his hand. He had put Mark behind bars. The evidence had looked clean back then. Partial prints on a knife, an odd bank deposit, shaky witnesses. But something had never sat right with Owen. The inconsistencies had nagged at him. 2 months ago, an old informant hinted that Mark had been a scapegoat, that the real killer, someone with ties to the victim's illicit business dealings, had vanished after the trial. Owen started rechecking files quietly. That morning, he got the text. "Execution set for 9. If you're doing anything, do it now." He grabbed a burner phone and called an old contact, a digital forensics expert. "Find me anything you can on Kenneth Voss." The victim, especially financials. We need something now. Then he grabbed his coat, gun, and car keys. There wasn't much time. Mark sat in the sterile holding cell, untouched cheeseburger in front of him. The smell reminded him of a night years ago, when he and Laura had picked up Ace from the shelter and celebrated with greasy fast food on the drive home. The door clanked open. Warden Hallberg appeared. Then, behind her, Ace, Mark whispered. The dog barked once, then bounded forward. In seconds, Ace was in his lap, licking tears off Mark's cheeks. The guard stood back, stunned. Even Hallberg turned her face. Laura entered slowly. Her eyes met Mark's. I never gave up. I knew you didn't do it. He couldn't speak. He just held Ace tighter. In the DA's office, Owen barged through the doors with documents in hand. We have a problem, he told Assistant District Attorney Carla Mendez. There's a second suspect. Wire transfers. Offshore accounts. The whole case against Delaney was built on quicksand. Carla's jaw clenched. We can't halt an execution based on suspicions. We need undeniable evidence. Give me 2 hours, Owen said. Call the governor. File a temporary stay. If I'm wrong, I'll resign. But if I'm right, we're about to kill an innocent man. The call came to the prison just before 8 a.m. Temporary stay issued, Hallberg said as she re-entered Mark's cell. You have 2 more hours. Maybe more if this pans out. Mark stared at her. Are you serious? She nodded. Someone's digging. If they find what we need, you're not dying today. By 10:30 a.m., Owen had what he needed. Trace transfers linking Voss to a fixer named Clint Morgan, who had a history of staging murders. Morgan's burner phone had pinged near the scene the night of the killing. Carla Mendez, stunned by the volume of evidence, called the governor's office again. We have enough to justify a full stay, she said. At 10:47, the call came through. Execution canceled, Hallberg announced, walking into the holding cell. Pending full investigation, you are not to be executed. Mark collapsed on a bench. Ace nudged his chin. Laura sobbed. 2 days later, a judge formally vacated Mark's conviction. The courtroom erupted as Laura rushed to embrace him. Ace barked with joy. Detective Owen Harden approached. I'm sorry, he said. I should have listened sooner. Mark looked at him, pain and forgiveness mingling in his eyes. Just make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. They walked out into the sun. Laura, Mark, Ace, freedom. The beginning of everything they had once lost, and the promise of everything still to come.